Hello, Dr. L here. This is a short video on how to use the WinXGO program. This is a Windows 7 system. I have installed the WinXGO software, so I'm going to go to the Start menu, Start, All Programs, Micromedia, WinXGO, and launch WinXGO. This is the WinXGO dialog box. The purpose of WinXGO is to produce a data file for a given entity, be it stock, commodity, or person, starting with a natal date or birth date. That's filled in here, and then the time duration you want for the data file is specified from starting to ending date. The name of the file is specified as the output file, and there are parameters. You can delay the XGO file by days. You can change the scale factor, and this should say scale times 10. Because of the way Windows 7 changed graphics, the 10 isn't showing here. And bias. XGO files are inherently negative numbers. They go down to about minus 140. So to plot them in many programs, you have to add a number to it. And since energy computations are all relative, we can add a bias, which should normally be 200. Once you compute a program, it will show you the minimum and maximum values. The output format can be for every day, in other words, calendar days, weekdays, or trading days. I normally use calendar days because I follow natural cycles. My plotting program can plot weekends and holidays. There are many possible formats. In fact, any format is possible. Some common ones are the one I use for my Chaos Trader program. Metastock has a little different format. You can specify in TC2000. You can do a comma separated variable format to put into a spreadsheet, or a particular one for Excel, which separates them by tabs instead of commas. Anson, Get, Dynamic Trader, and the tutorial gives a complete explanation of how to use this custom format string to generate any output that you would want. I typically do add in Chiron. WinXGO was written before I discovered the utility of Chiron. I typically add it in. You can generate two kinds of files, an XGO file or a ZD filtered file, which I call ZGOs. If you're generating a ZD filtered file, you have to check this box and specify the length of it and shift it up and down. And a ZD file runs positive and negative numbers, so you may want to bias it up. Once you've input all this stuff, you like to save what you input in what I call a job description file, and you can save that job description file, you can reload it, and you can look what job description files you have. So now let me just give you an example. I'm going to take a particular date of September 3rd, 2007. Oops, ran past it. And I like to make my starting day about 6 years prior to this natal date, so that I have data that available to do a longer term filter. Let me just make it a nice 7 years, 2000. And I generally like to run this for 20 years past the natal date, just so I don't have to recompute it. So I'm going to make this 17. And this output file I'm going to call A ADB.XGO. And I typically use the XGO extension. You can use any extension you want, but I use XGO for the raw energy file. Okay, I'm not going to delay this. I'm going to keep the scale factor at 1. See, this is scale times 10, so 10 divided by 10 is 1. I am going to add a bias of 200 here. And I am going to compute all days. I'm going to use my standard month, day, year value format, separated by spaces. I'm not going to do a ZD filter. Before I run this, I'm going to save this job as ADB job.txt. And typically I name these job files end it with the word job and keep them as text files so that they're easy to read. I try to keep all my data and job description files, everything in simple ASCII text files. So I'm now going to save this. It's now been saved. And I'm now going to compute XGO. So I've set up my parameters, I've saved them, I'm going to make this computation. It's fairly fast because this is a fast machine, and it computed some 17 years of XGO data for me. Minimum in the data is 69, but maximum is 197, so I know I've got all positive numbers. So I should be able to plot this data in just about any plotting program. I can take a look at this data file by clicking View. It says it's too large for Notepad, but it will look at it in WordPad. There it is, starting at 2000. These are numbers in the fourth column here are the energy values, and it does go up to 2017. So at this point, I now have a data file, and you may wonder where it is. Well, it is in the same directory as WinXGO. So let's go find it. I'm going to open up Windows Explorer, look on main, and I go in Program Files. Here's Micromedia, WinXGO, and there is my ADB XGO. It says I can't open it, and that's because of the extension XGO. If I can open it with my favorite editor called TextPad, and there you see the same data again. So this is just telling me where the data file is at. So it's in Program Files in the same location as the WinXGO program. You can, when you set up this output file, you can specify a full path name if you want. So now I'm going to go to Start. I'm going to plot this data file. I'm going to launch. I'm going to go All Programs again, Micromedia again, WinXGO, and I'm going to launch the plotting program. Now, I provide a simple version of my end-of-day plotting program. I don't recommend this as the ultimate plotting program because most of you already have very good trading software, and most of that software can load an external data file. But just in case you don't have such a program, I provide this lightweight copy of my Chaos Trader End-of-Day program. So, just like WinXGO, this is set up with a job description file, which I'll go over in a moment. But what we want to do here, When you start CT, it creates a blank file here for chart number 1. So let's go in and look at the job and look at the plot layout. Plot layout. I'm going to change the title of the plot to ADB. Vertical price label. I'm going to ADB. Leave it in landscape mode. This portrait mode may or may not work that well on particular computers. Maintain the aspect ratio. Don't worry about these auxiliary plots. That's a way to put a little plot down below. But for right now, all I want to do is set up the general layout here, and I'm going to apply that. Click OK. Now, in the job, I want to pick out a data source. I did plot layout, and I'm going to do data source. And I am going to look for one of these 4 data file formats. This is open, high, low, close after the date. This is high, low, close after the date. This is just a single value after the date, which is CLO. And I'm going to go find this data file. This is blank here, so I'm going to go find it with the browse button. And I want to go to my main program, main drive, program files, Micromedia, WinXGO, and there's my ADB XGO. And I just open it. Okay, now that says where my data file is. I still don't see anything on the plot because I have to do main plot and set up the date range I wanted. This data doesn't start until 2007. I mean, year 2000. So I'm going to start this starting year as 2000, ending year as 2017. That's the date range that I set up for the file to begin with. Now, the low on the data file is 97 or 93, something like that. So I'm going to make this 50. I'm going to make the high 250. So I've got the high, low, and steps. This is points per day if you're doing static scale charts. It doesn't really apply to what we're doing here, but it's just one of the features of this program. Now, along the bottom, I can put tick marks for every year, every month, every day. And I'm not going to put every day. I'm going to just do every month. And I'm going to label every year, month, and day. So I'm going to apply this. And lo and behold, I did get data plotted. So this is the XGO file. Not sure what this artifact is out over here. Shows up sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. Now, these dense yellow lines are because I'm doing every month. Let me just take those off and apply that. So there's the data file plotted. So now I can save this file. I can save this job description. Save as WinXGO. So I'm going to call this chart ADB .ct for Chaos Trader and save it. So there I've computed this energy forecast and I have made a plot of it. Now, let me go back to this WinXGO and let me plot another one. I'm going to call this WinXGO ADB 194 XGO, and I'm going to call this ADB ZD 194, and I'm going to increase the scale factor by 10 here because it's best to do that. And I'm going to make this a ZD filter, and the length of it I want to be 194 days. And I'm going to add a bias of 200. And I'm going to save that. Now, I'm going to compute XGO, and it tells me the XGO computation is done. But it first computes XGO and then it filters it to get ZGO. So I'll click this again. ZD filtering is done. And if you see here, my minus number here, minus 27. Okay, so I'm going to increase this bias on my ZD filter for 250. Whoops. 250. Save that job. Compute XGO. There's XGO, and then automatically it'll do the ZGO. So, oops, I really wanted to name this ZGO, so to indicate that it's filtered. So let me save that job again. There's computed, there's the filtering done. And you see now I've got a minimum that is positive number. So between 0 and 500 is a good plotting range for it. So now I'm going to bring up Chaos Trader end of day, and I'm going to do a file, or rather a job. I'm going to do an overlay plot. Overlay plot 1. Have to add it to the plot and a file name. Now this is going to be from 0 to 500. And I want to go find the file, and I want the CD file. There it is, ADB 194 ZGO. Open that and apply it to the plot. And you see what it's done is it's smoothed out these swings in that function. So I can add a shift factor to it here. Let me shift it up by 100 or so. So that you can see that this is a much smoother curve. Now this is a very dense chart because it covers several years. But if you look at this just during 1 year, there might be a low, a high, and a low in that stock or commodity then. But that's the basics of how you can use WinXGO and its associated charting program. If you want to use WinXGO to also plot the data for ADB, you have to be able to create a data file on your computer that contains the data for ADB. There is some information on that in the tutorial, and I won't go into that today. I just wanted to show you how to generate an XGO, filter it to get a ZGO, and plot both of them. Thank you.